Welcome to the Baking Book Club, a space where we break down and discuss whatever I'm reading at the moment while baking a delicious and sweet treat. Today's little treat I'll be baking alongside this commentary is a citrus and rosewater olive oil cake with a little bit of some whipped cream piping and some juicy dark cherries. I figured the white whipped cream against the red cherries would fit the theme of the book we're going to be reviewing today. If you'd like to make this cake too, you can find the recipe on my Patreon, Maddie's Kitchen. Today we're going to be exploring the horrifyingly comical world of Bunny by Mona Awad. I picked up Bunny on a whim, mostly because I saw that Vanilla Mace was reading it for her 75 soft challenge. So this is the first book in a while I've gone into not really knowing anything about, not really knowing what to expect. It took me a few chapters to get into the story, but once I did, I really couldn't put it down. I read the whole book cover to cover in one weekend, which is rarely something I'm able to do. Compared to Wuthering Heights, this is definitely a quicker read, but it's still packed full of complex characters, themes, and symbols to yap about together. And I feel like I rarely get surprised by plots anymore, but there were certain parts of Bunny, especially around the more climactic scenes, that I really didn't expect. If you enjoy gothic fiction with a touch of absurd humor, and you enjoy a book that keeps you on your toes a bit, I definitely recommend giving Bunny a try. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. We open at this welcome back beginning of the semester luncheon for Warren University's graduate writing students. Here we are introduced to the main character, Samantha, and her friend Ava, who spend most of their time at this luncheon just staring with annoyance at another group of 4 women that self-proclaim themselves as the bunnies. The bunnies are quite touchy and affectionate with each other, which Sam and Ava like to make fun of. Samantha seems to not really like anyone in her program, viewing the school and its inhabitants as just filled with a bunch of pretentious people. But I mean, it is an Ivy League school, so what did you expect here? This is Samantha's last year here, and she's supposed to be spending it writing her thesis, but ever since she's gotten to the school, writing has really become a struggle, ironically. She's hardly produced anything. It's also the bunnies' final year here too. They're all scheduled to take a thesis workshop class along with Samantha this semester. Samantha is not thrilled about this because she remembers their classes together last year and how she was made to feel like an outcast by their closeness. But it looks like this time around could be a little bit different because Samantha receives an invitation to their private get-together they call the Smut Salon. The way that Samantha describes the bunnies' clique-like behavior reminds me a lot of Mean Girls, just with a little bit more of an eerie undertone. This entire book does, and we'll discuss that more later on, but the bunnies are a group of popular girls who get along a little too well. They're a little too affectionate toward each other. They laugh at each other's jokes a little bit too long. They're teetering on the edge between a friend group and something else. As Samantha is reading over her invitation, we get introduced to 2 other kind of important characters, Jonah and someone that Samantha calls the Lion. She has a lot of nicknames for characters in this book, so it can get a little confusing, but I'm trying my best to use the same name for all the characters. Jonah's kind of a well-intentioned but awkward guy from the school's poetry program. He's going to Warren on the same highly selective scholarship that Samantha is. So since they come from similar socioeconomic and familial backgrounds, they tend to understand each other on a level that other students like the bunnies cannot relate to. They often gravitate toward each other in various academic and social situations, even though Samantha is clearly not interested in pursuing anything deeper than an acquaintanceship with Jonah. Jonah keeps trying though because he's not the most socially cognizant. Either that or he just doesn't really care that much about social norms. Now this other guy, Lion, Samantha talks about him in a much more mysterious and distant manner throughout the entire novel. We don't get to know much about him, especially early on, other than the fact that he's Scottish. He's Samantha's thesis advisor supervisor, and according to her, they have a little bit of a history there, which is the reason why he's so distant now. Before her first day of classes, Samantha goes to hang out with Ava. This is where we get to learn a little bit more about Ava's lore, and we also get a preview of some of the differences between the two that will be at the heart of their conflict later on in the story. Ava dropped out of her art school because she claimed that it was killing her soul, even though she only had 1 year left like Samantha does. She dresses alternatively in a way that Samantha admires. She says what she means and she stands by that, no matter what anyone else thinks. Samantha also really admires this. And if Ava were the one invited to the bunny smut salon, she would never accept the invitation because she doesn't like them. It's that simple for her, but it's not so simple for Samantha. As much as she thinks the bunnies and Warren are silly and entitled, she has this desire to fit in with them. She has the need to be accepted by these other people in her program to some degree, which contradicts her friendship with Ava in a lot of ways. Succumbing to this insecurity comes back to bite Samantha throughout the novel, as we'll get into. Ultimately, this desire coupled with curiosity wins out, and Samantha decides that she'll go just this one time despite Ava being vocal in her disagreement and it causing a little bit of a fight between the two. Before we talk more about the bunnies, I will tell you the nicknames that Samantha and Ava made for them alongside their real names. That way, hopefully it'll be a little less confusing. Caroline is nicknamed Cupcake, Kira is nicknamed Creepy Doll, Victoria is nicknamed Vignette, and Eleanor is nicknamed Duchess. And Eleanor/Duchess is kind of like the Regina George of the bunnies group. Samantha arrives at Caroline's house for the smut salon. She does this thing where she is trying to describe the characteristics of each of the girls while she's there, but she ends up just retelling personal experiences she's had with them instead. And this is the point where I realized that Samantha might be an unreliable narrator, and she definitely is, even more so as the book continues. And I think it's because she thinks about herself way too much. It is super clear in these upcoming scenes. One of the bunnies will make the slightest move or glance, and Samantha will start creating this entire narrative in her head about what that could mean and what the bunnies must be thinking of her. She will then get upset in that moment with them and herself over her overthinking, which probably stems back from that acceptance insecurity I was just talking about. This constant rumination causes Samantha to lie about the oddest things, saying whatever she thinks that the bunnies will want to hear in order to warm up to her. For example, Samantha tells them a story about her high school crush, fabricating the ending to make the memory sound more thrilling and more romanticized than it actually was. So basically, the smut salon entails each of the girls getting up and sharing some, in their opinion, provocative retelling of a story. When it gets to Samantha's turn, she almost tells them about her situation with Lion, not because she actually wants to share with them, but because she makes all these assumptions about them based on what she thinks they assume about her. Samantha feels the need to prove herself to the bunnies even though she claims she doesn't like them. But if that were true, then why is she even here instead of hanging out with Ava? There must be something that is drawing her to them that she doesn't yet realize. The better that she performs for these other girls, the more that she enjoys her time spent with them. Smut Salon kind of ends in a bit of a whirlwind. Samantha had one too many drinks and she wakes up the next morning in her apartment with minimal recollection of the night before. All she recalls is the bunnies convincing her to go and catch a real life bunny outside, but she doesn't remember what happened with the bunny or what happened afterward. She heads to her workshop class, which is supposed to help students with their final thesis. Like I mentioned earlier, Samantha's not really been working on that much at all. In fact, she seemed to write more before she came here. And I have some thoughts about why this might be. At this point in the book, I believed that maybe it is related to imposter syndrome. It's revealed that she applied to this program on a whim, thinking she'd never even get in, and yet she did. She's sort of frozen because she didn't actually believe she would make it this far, and instead of fully seizing the opportunity, her body is subconsciously rejecting it because that feels safer than believing she deserves to be here amongst all of these other well-off and better connected peers. And maybe she wasn't actually ready for this opportunity yet, but she felt like she couldn't turn it down. So far, every time she's talked about why she even came here, Samantha says something along the lines of, well, it's Warren, I can't say no to Warren, which doesn't really feel like enough of a reason to go, in my opinion, unless you do care about labels and how things look on paper. Samantha likes to think that she doesn't care about that stuff, but if she truly did not, then why isn't she taking a page out of Ava's book and dropping out and actually making time for herself to create what she wants to create? And no wonder Samantha's not getting actual writing done aside from all of that. Her thesis professor assigns the most performative and useless tasks for projects, like writing with a talisman through ash or contemplating on a tarot card while wandering through the wilderness. None of those things have anything to do with actually writing and developing the craft of writing. They are just silly little rituals that make you look out of the box and mysterious to outsiders. It just seems like such a waste of time to me and to Samantha as well. The class goes through everyone's written pieces that they were supposed to do over the summer, and it is not very good. It feels like everyone but Samantha is writing through the lens of their interpretation of what a writing student at a prestigious university should be, instead of actually being a writer, which is probably why most of the other students don't enjoy Samantha's writing. She actually has something to say because she's actually had more real-life experiences, similar to Jonah, who's also at the top of his class for poetry. But it looks like the bunnies are warming up to Samantha after their little smut salon experience because their criticisms are much less harsher than usual. By this point in the story, I wanted to know even more about Ava and where she came from, her history. We know she dropped out of the nearby art school and is now working in a nature lab that is nearby Warren's campus, and then she draws in her free time. She is not in school. She works a fine but not super well-paying job. She lives in an apartment that's not as nice as the bunnies, but it's definitely nicer than Samantha's. Does she come from a similar background as Samantha, or is her family well off too and is helping fund her life right now? I had so many questions about the logistics of Ava's situation that wouldn't get answered until near the end of the book. Speaking of Ava, Sam hasn't seen her in a while. In the meantime, the bunnies continue being kinder to Samantha, trying to make awkward small talk and include her in class more. Samantha is confused and still a little wary of this, but she also might kind of want to hang out with the bunnies again. Samantha reveals that she got her start writing as a young girl in her mother's hair salon. She would base her writing off of the horror and thriller stories she saw her mother reading and use the clients as characters. Her mother has since passed away around the time Sam was like 13, and coming to Warren was, again, the first time she's ever struggled to write something. And not only does coming to Warren make her struggle with writing, but it's actually the first time in her life she has ever struggled to write something. After her mom's death, she went to live with her father, who had some kind of shady, suspicious real estate job, and they had a lot of money for a while, like Bunny and Warren University level money, but did not last. And this is probably another reason why she is so intrigued by the bunnies and their recent niceties, more so than Ava is. Spending time with them is another way to disassociate from reality in ways that her writing slump won't allow her to do anymore. She can pretend to be the girl that she'd probably end up becoming if her mother didn't pass away and her father's business hadn't crashed and burned. It's been a couple of weeks at this point, and Ava, we still haven't seen her. Samantha starts to feel worried, like she did something wrong to upset her, but then she gets a text from the bunnies inviting her to a party. Samantha keeps being put in these situations where she has to choose between searching for Ava, which, sort of spoiler, but later on we learn is actually searching for something else, of course, or assimilating into the bunnies group. Samantha keeps trying to do both at this point, but it's not gonna last. So she finally tracks down Ava at their tango class that they take as a hobby sometimes, and Ava doesn't seem upset at all. In fact, she's acting totally normal, which confuses Sam because they hadn't spoken or seen each other in so long, despite Samantha reaching out to Ava multiple times and being ignored. Samantha tells her that the bunny party was boring and that she'd rather have hung out with Ava. Samantha insists that this is the truth, but then 2 chapters ago she insisted that she had so much fun hanging out with bunnies and that was the truth. So which one is it, girl? Although this time she couldn't look at Ava when she said that, so that's probably not a great sign. Ava's clear nonchalance about Samantha's whereabouts makes her feel like Ava doesn't care about her. She feels rejected by her friend's independence and security within herself in a lot of ways. And this really creates a stark contrast with the bunny's smothering, dependent, all-consuming aura, which Samantha begins to embrace by then choosing to go to another bunny party after this incident. This is not another smut salon, it's a prom-themed party, and they dress Samantha up to match once she gets there. She's wearing this big floofy dress and her hair is all braided and twisted up every which way. They physically transform her to blend in with them, and Samantha doesn't fight them on this externally, but internally, you know, she's hating all of it, and yet she still lets them do it. There's also guys here that are the bunny's dates to dance with. They're all wearing the same outfit, and they're all wearing leather gloves over their hands, which is kind of strange. The girls say that they have a surprise for Samantha, and they leave her here and head upstairs for a little while. There are some distant screams, and Samantha tries to make conversation with the guys, but they speak in really confusing ways that don't connect to the questions she's asking them at all. Anyways, the bunnies come back downstairs and there's a knock at the door. And it's the guy who Samantha shared she had a crush on in high school. The one where she fabricated the ending of their story to be a lot cooler and more romantic. So here he is saying how excited he is to be here and see Samantha again. And she notices something, that he's also wearing the same black leather gloves. Who knows though, maybe it's just the dress code and she didn't get the memo. Everyone starts to dance with their dates, and after a while, Samantha notices something a little strange happening. All the guys have started chewing on the bunny's clothes, and then she turns to see that her high school crush date has started to try and eat the corsage off of her wrist. Obviously, she freaks out because that's very strange and inappropriate. I was also freaking out on her behalf. Like, why are they all doing that? And then her date gets so furious and is so angry over her about this. He starts shouting these mean accusations towards Samantha about how everyone knows that she thinks she's better than them all, and how she thinks her writing is better than everyone, and how she slept with her thesis advisor Lion to get better treatment. It's basically a mix of assumptions that the bunnies have probably made about her and things that Samantha assumes the bunnies think about her. And then he gets so angry that his head literally explodes. I'm not kidding. There's blood and guts everywhere. His insides are outside, and Samantha faints out of shock. So that escalated quickly. My gears were turning at this point, trying to make sense of these exploding men. I had a feeling that once the guys started talking strangely, that they probably weren't completely human. By the way they were all chewing, I assumed they were somehow connected to the bunny that Samantha caught during the smut salon that she can't remember what exactly happened with. Maybe it was some sort of sacrifice? But don't worry, we will get answers soon enough. But it's crazy to me how they would reveal all of this on only like the second occasion Samantha has hung out with them ever. I don't think she would be comfortable enough with this for it to just smooth over well. But also, who is Samantha gonna tell that's gonna believe her besides maybe Ava? And her and Ava aren't even talking right now. So then I thought the bunnies would gaslight her and tell her that she hallucinated it because she was so intoxicated. And that's exactly what the bunnies do. They gaslight her into believing that she made it all up. Oh, and also, they're calling her Bunny now, their little pet name that they use. And she's calling them by their real names instead of those nicknames that she and Ava made up. Samantha's relationship with the bunnies is being taken to the next level, probably because of all the gore they just experienced, and also because Samantha, I believe, really is that desperate to make friends and find some sense of belonging, even if it's with people who have exploding boyfriends. They all go to workshop the next day like everything is normal. Everyone has kind things to say about Sam's story, even their professor. And Samantha can't help but feel that the bunny's stories were remarkable too. She's still so in shock and stuck in a daze. It's all very strange. The bunnies take Samantha to lunch afterward, and somehow they know about her writer's block, and they've come up with a plan to help her break free from it. They really talk this up, how it's bigger than writing, how it'll help her retake agency over her life, but what is it? So the bunnies have their own private version of workshop that they're going to show Samantha. They also have given her some pills beforehand that are supposed to help calm her down a little bit. So she's kind of spaced out at this point, which is not helping her reliability as a narrator. They head to Kira's attic in bunny masks. Samantha sits in a chair off to the side while she watches them unveil their workshop. They get in a circle and start chanting something around a real-life bunny. Nothing happens for a few moments, and then all of a sudden, the bunny explodes. I didn't realize there was going to be so much exploding in this novel when I picked it up. And then a man appears in the same suit and black leather gloves as from the prom-themed party. Well, the bunnies don't refer to him as a man, they call him a hybrid, half human and half rabbit, except he is just the first draft. He doesn't know how to speak, he can only scream. So they off him with an axe. They all gather around and discuss what edits and revisions must be made for the next one. Like, this is all normal. And finally, by the fourth round, they've created this perfect dirty blonde Frenchman. No wonder these girls are so obsessively affectionate. They're sharing collective trauma every time they do this. Also, so many questions were running through my mind. How did they discover that they could do this? How did this start? Does anyone else know? What happens after they graduate? Do they just move on like nothing happened? What is the purpose? What is the point? Why a bunny? What do bunnies symbolize? Fertility, magic, luck, vulnerability, innocence. I think maybe in this story, it's a bit of a combination of all of those, which I'll address a little bit more later on. My gears were turning, but I needed some more information before I could definitely say what I believed the role of the bunnies was symbolically in this story. So now Samantha's unreliability as a narrator has been taken to the extreme. She has completely succumbed to this bunny cult. She doesn't remember anyone else outside of the bunnies, not even Jonah or Ava. She only refers to the bunnies as bunny, and everyone's individual dialogue and actions are grouped together quite a bit. It's no longer she said this and I said that, it's we said this and we said that. Probably as a result from the trauma that they're creating and slaughtering has made up, mixed with the pills that they take to calm their nerves. Samantha's entire written perspective on Warren University, its students and professors have changed now that she is succumbing to this cultish bunny groupthink. Let's circle back to the hybrids for a moment because I have some ethical concerns here. Not even because they axe them once they're done with them, but because some of them they just release into the wild to roam free. They drive them to the edge of town and drop them off somewhere like they're dumping a litter of puppies. The bunnies don't seem to have problems with this because they see it as releasing their art into the world. It's like a satirical, dark humor version of Frankenstein after Victor creates the creature and realizes the weight of the fact that he just created life and basically freaks out and dips because he just wanted to achieve a cool thing. He doesn't actually want the responsibility or the consequence of it. This story actually has several different parallels to Frankenstein that I'll touch on as we get there. But this assimilation has completely taken over Samantha's life and her autonomy, which I think she's relieved by at times. If everything is bunny this and bunny that, then she has no time to contemplate her unfinished thesis draft, her issues with Ava or Lion or her family. She doesn't have to think about how lonely and lost she is when she has the bunnies to guide her and consume her every waking moment. One day, Ava spots Samantha with the bunnies and pulls her off to the side, trying to get her to snap out of it. Of course, Samantha doesn't recognize her at first. The way she describes Ava here is important to note. It really cements the disassociation and convergence of Samantha into one of the bunnies. She finds Ava ugly and strange now, when before she really admired Ava's distinct way of dressing and carrying herself. She might have even been a little envious of it at times. Even when she's alone in this alleyway with Ava, Samantha still refers to herself as we. As much as Samantha wants to detach and run away from this moment of facing her friend like this, she can't. Ava takes Samantha to a diner to try and reground her, but Samantha's mind keeps drifting back to incidents with the bunnies. They reveal some more information about how the hybrid guys work. You can't go off script from what they've been created to be at all, otherwise they'll get upset and explode. Hence what happened at the prom dance. They only compliment the girls or say, "Tell me everything, I'm listening." To compare them in writing terms, the hybrids are flat and repetitive characters. They aren't fully fleshed out literally or figuratively. I mean, they don't even have real hands. I think this speaks a lot to the bunnies themselves as well-off women, which I'll expand on in a moment. And again later on. One time Samantha tried to look under their gloves and the hybrid bit her, and then she had to go to the hospital because she wasn't sure if it could give her rabies or not, since it is half bunny. One of the bunnies was like, "I told you not to do that. I should just let you die, but I won't because you're seriously my favorite." And Samantha says that girl is her favorite too, even though it's so clear that the both of them are lying. It's morbid and it's comical, like many of the conversations between Samantha and the bunnies are. This really is like Mean Girls, but horror with a touch of Frankenstein. The way that the bunnies talk about their hybrids like it's so serious and cutting edge reminds me a lot about how they would talk about their writing earlier on, like it was so deep and sacred and full of meaning. But really it's just a bunch of convoluted, self-serving fantasy nonsense. It's just another extension of their privileged rich girl insecurity that they don't actually have anything interesting to say because of how much their upbringing existed in a sort of bubble. So instead of substance, they focus on doing a bunch of wacky rituals and embellishments to show how much work they're putting into what they're creating, to then prove its worth. That's also part of the reason why the bunnies chose Samantha to join them. They tell her frequently how they need her perspective, how they know she's seen things. That power will help make their hybrids less creature-like and more human, more nuanced. But Samantha does not see herself that way. I think she feels burdened by her nuance because she actually had to live it. She had to live it and grieve through her mother's death and her father's loss of income and eventual abandonment. It makes her writing fuller, but it weighs down her ability to exist and have a full life. And the bunnies don't get that at all. They've never had to. Samantha definitely has some abandonment issues. Her mom died when she was young. Her parents were divorced. She lived with her mom until her mom died. Then her dad took care of her and he was rich for a while, and then they had nothing. He could no longer provide for her anymore the way that she was used to, which is also a form of abandonment because of the lack of stability from a caregiver. With the bunnies, even though it's toxic and weird, they never leave each other's side. They are inseparable in a cult-like sense, which creates a lot of intimacy quickly. Too fast, I think, in such an intense way. And even now, as Ava says in this diner that she plans on leaving town to go live somewhere else, Samantha gets upset and feels rejected. She takes it personally, even though Ava's been clear she doesn't like this area much the entire novel. Ava takes off Samantha's heart-shaped glasses that one of the bunnies gave her, which is symbolic of removing rose-colored glasses, and Samantha hates it. Everything is scary and sterile and gray now, and real now. The bunnies ultimately track Samantha down and Ava leaves, not before tossing back the heart-shaped glasses though. Samantha's sort of out of her bunny trance at this point. She is referring to everyone by their names instead of bunny now, and is a little more cynical in her thoughts about her bunny friends. Jonah is around too, and they strike up a conversation. Well, he does, and Samantha keeps looking for ways to leave like usual. But the bunnies have left her there, and so has Ava, so there's no escaping today. She makes Jonah drive around so she can look for Ava with no luck. The longer she sits with him in his car, the less bunny she becomes. she actually starts to dislike them again. And yet she also feels protective of them. During this time, she and Jonah bond over both having dead parents and how it kind of messed them up a lot. He invites her over, but then she gets a text from the bunnies who want to have a talk. And even as regular Samantha, she's still choosing them over a genuine connection. Samantha's armed with a bit more courage and all the gossip she imagines they must be saying about her right now. She has to keep reminding herself that she hates them and that they hate her as she enters her home. She thinks this, and yet she's also worried they're going to tell her to leave. Abandonment issues strike again. Part of her doesn't want to be here, but part of her has to be here to know if they'll kick her out or not. And they don't. They want her to lead their version of workshop. You know, the one with the bunnies and the explosions. They think she's ready. Samantha is surprised and she still tries to fight this, but she succumbs once again when they pull her in for a hug. It probably didn't help that Ava has plans to leave. So without the bunnies, Samantha would have no one besides Jonah, who she keeps finding excuses to avoid. Samantha tries and tries, but she can't make her bunny explode. So they give up, but when they leave, they see something outside. There's a guy sitting at the bus stop. Could this be Samantha's first hybrid creation thing? It seems too real though, too human, so it must just be a guy, and they leave him alone. It's the next day, their last day of actual workshop class for the semester. Samantha's sitting off by herself again, probably because of the disaster that was last night. And then, just to make her feel worse, the bunnies suggest doing one last writing exercise on the topic of home, which obviously is complicated for Samantha. So she has to listen to them talk about their families and their rich lives the entire time. And Samantha has no one to go home to. So she leaves class and then she runs into Lion, but he's just checking in on her thesis progress because he hasn't heard anything from her all semester. He is another person Samantha feels has abandoned her. We don't know much about their history yet, but from Samantha's perspective, they have a much colder and distant relationship now than they did last year. And we can see that Samantha is hurt by that sudden change every time that they interact. So now Samantha has no friends, she has no thesis written, and she has no family to go back to for winter break. She's all alone, and as much as she tried, she couldn't prove herself to the bunnies. She couldn't make a hybrid the way they did. She was supposed to be so powerful and she failed. She's all alone, it's cold, and it's dark. Samantha goes out into a snowstorm, wandering around trying to find her way back to Ava's apartment to maybe have some reconciliation there. But she can't find it, and now she's sick. On top of everything else, let's just give her a fever too. Once she is feeling better, Samantha heads to the grocery store. She buys what she needs from the more affordable one, and then she just goes to wander around in the expensive grocery store. Here she sees that guy again from the bus stop, the one that they thought was possibly a hybrid. I had a suspicious feeling about him, and he's certainly not a human. He's stealing a bunch of stuff, and Samantha's watching him in awe. She also runs into her workshop professor, who invites her over for dinner on Christmas. This seems like a nice gesture, but Samantha thinks she's being almost demeaning with her offer because Samantha is in such an insecure and low place right now. She is very judgmental about everyone else as a way to protect herself. As much as she makes fun of people like her professor and the bunnies, there's a part of her that desires to fit in seamlessly with them, and her current insecurities only make that part louder. She does end up going to the dinner, and guess what? Jonah is there too. Samantha is very uncomfortable at her professor's house. She and her husband are asking pretty standard small talk questions to Samantha and Jonah about how the semester and their time at Warren is going. And similarly to when she was at the supermarket, Samantha internalizes these questions, almost as personal attacks on what she believes they see as her shortcomings as an individual, which of course are actually Samantha's insecurities about herself. Jonah doesn't seem to be having any problems with these questions, but also Samantha makes him out to be kind of socially unaware, so is he really that, or is that just another one of Samantha's biases? It's honestly kind of tricky to tell exactly how the other characters intend to come across because Samantha is such a biased narrator. In reality, I assume there's probably a twinge of self-righteousness in her professor's comments and questions, but I think most of the judgment is coming from Samantha herself. Eventually, Samantha breaks down when she sees one of the hybrids is actually the butler pouring wine into everyone's glass. I think this is a culminating moment where all of these questions, her insecurities, her struggles with Ava, her family, and everything with the bunnies comes to a head, and she excuses herself early from the dinner. She exits and sees that strange guy again, getting on the bus. So she races over to get on the bus too, and she's talking with him, and she recognizes things about him. She sees familiar people in his features. Could it be that she was really not a failure after all? This guy gets off the bus and leads Samantha all the way to Ava's house, and then he disappears. Ava welcomes her back in, and as she spends more time with Ava, Samantha is slowly coming back to herself. The snowstorm and winter ushers in a death, a quieting of Samantha's old self, and her time spent with the bunnies. She is in this sort of in-between space where she shed that version of herself and is still figuring out what is next. And now that she's gone through all of this and stepped away from it, she's able to write again. Apparently, mystery, probably hybrid guy thing lives upstairs from Ava. He moved in recently and his name is Max, and he's dating Ava. Now Samantha feels conflicted because she can't just let her best friend unknowingly date a half-animal, half-man creature. But how do you even begin to explain that? And it's so weird because she knows basically what he's going to say and when to Ava because he's still following that similar hybrid conversation formula, just beefed up a little bit. I did not get great vibes from him at first, I'm not gonna lie. They have dinner together and he brings home a rabbit, of course, freshly caught, and prepares it for them to eat. That's really the only thing he ever eats is fresh rabbit meat. And he's also saying things to Ava that are directly out of Sam's private writing notebook. And he also makes a comment about how the bunnies should be destroyed. Max says that he is a performance artist by trade, and right now he's currently working on some big project that is a secret, but he can't wait for Sam to find out about it soon. So I'm sure it probably has something to do with that comment about destroying the bunnies. Not at all concerning or alarming. Samantha goes up into Max's room and finds her old notebook. Someone else has written and left all the bunnies' email addresses in it. And she also finds Max's phone left behind. He clearly planted this stuff so that she could find it, but Max has been texting and flirting with the bunnies under multiple different identities. Then Samantha gets an email from her professor, her thesis professor, to meet on campus for an emergency workshop meeting. The bunnies all arrive to this meeting looking odd and disheveled. Kira has carved the phrase "eat me" all over her skin, and the professor seems unfazed by this. I don't think that's because she's under the spell of whatever Max is plotting. I think it's just because she seems super into her students really dedicating themselves to their writing process in quite a performative, often harmful way. So she probably just thinks it's related to that. Eleanor also arrives late too, which she never has before. And for some reason, Max has sent them all emails to this meeting under the guise of their professor with different information. They also have brought white takeout boxes with them, and none of the bunnies are sitting together or acting like their usual affectionate selves. I can't tell if Samantha knows Max gave them the boxes because he's part of her, or if she just is making assumptions again. Like when they each open them up, she imagines how he presented the items to the bunnies. A cupcake, a doll, a bunch of cut up words. Is she imagining that, or is it more like receiving a vision? The girls read their updated stories and everyone is very catty and condescending about them, which is a sharp departure from their usual showers of compliments. Even the professor is confused and bewildered by their stories and their behavior. Each of their stories revolve around their recent experiences with Max that we see little glimpses of from the text messages that Sam found. A lot of really fantastical and dark dark role-playing is involved. So bunnies have always been the prey in some form throughout the novel. First, it was the actual bunny animals that were destroyed to create the hybrids, which I would also consider as some sort of prey themselves given their submissiveness, their lack of autonomy, and their lack of knowledge. Even Samantha was preyed upon to become a bunny. And now the bunnies, these girls who were preying upon all of these other things, have become the prey via Max. And he didn't come from a bunny, we're pretty sure, because Samantha's bunny never explodes. We don't know what he comes from exactly, but he's often described as wolfish in character by Samantha and the other bunnies. He has no bunny in him, not by name or title, meaning he has no relation to bunny qualities. He is the first true predator. And he's also kind of an exaggerated version of Samantha, with his love for Ava and disdain for the girl bunnies. This story is definitely giving more Frankenstein vibes here, with the creature, aka Max, coming back and seeking reparations from his creators. The bunnies are the creators of the hybrids as a concept, but Samantha is his personal creator. And they are not getting along very well at this point either. Even though she made him, she's part of him, she almost hears his thoughts at times, Samantha cannot figure out what the point of Max's big plan is. I don't think she spends enough time with herself to know that answer at this point. She's been drunk or on some kind of substance like every single chapter. She's hardly ever sober, which means she's hardly ever actually facing the present moment. Samantha loves to avoid her feelings toward herself and the people she cares about, especially Ava. I really thought I was onto something here with Ava and Samantha. I thought I was picking up on a certain kind of vibe, a Willa vibe, since basically the beginning of the novel. I had a feeling that Samantha more than admired Ava, and I thought Max's relationship with her supported that, especially because he quotes personal writing from Samantha to Ava all the time, which are a shower of compliments and adoration. Samantha tries to tell Ava everything about the bunnies and about Max, but Ava doesn't really believe her because who in their right mind would? Then Samantha heads to what she thinks is a meeting with Lion about her thesis progress. This is when we learn about why they have a weird relationship now. Basically, Samantha got super drunk and ran into him. He took her over to his place and she started word vomiting a bunch of vulnerable stuff about her family history and the bunnies and how lonely and isolated she feels. Definitely some boundary crossing information and situation for a student-teacher relationship. She releases all of this pent-up stuff to him, and she was upset that he sat there and he let her talk and he didn't try to do anything with her physically or intimately. This very drunk girl that he is in a position of power over. And of course, after that moment, he was stricter with boundaries for how they were interacting, because it's clear that Samantha was getting the wrong idea here. We don't know his intentions for taking her to his home that night, but what we do know is that he found her stumbling around intoxicated in a dark alleyway alone. So he probably was just genuinely concerned with her safety and well-being. And Samantha ruminates on this for a good while, even writing stories about that night and changing the ending to be more romanticized, just like she did when she was telling that story about her high school crush to the bunnies. Also, her current meeting with Lion isn't actually meeting. She was bamboozled and kidnapped by 2 hybrids. I guess after the bunnies humiliated themselves at workshop, they put the pieces together and are now punishing Samantha for Max's actions. I think it's partly revenge for his actions and also acting out of jealousy and envy. Samantha was the only one who could create a fully functioning hybrid. She's the only one who writes dark, yes, but interesting pieces of work. I think they're also punishing her for that too, for being better than them. All of the money, the status, and connection in the world couldn't give them the power that Samantha has. The power she could actually harness well if she's ever able to honestly face herself. They do eventually let her go, but the bunnies aren't finished with her yet. And this is where things get really crazy because the bunnies go and kill Ava. And when they do, it's revealed that Ava is not a person. Samantha also made her up, just like Max, except Ava was a swan from the pond that Samantha used to visit last year when she was lonely. Her imagination literally made her a friend, and that's probably why she felt so connected to her all the time. So they're not Willowa. Ava is an extension of her. And now that Ava's gone, Samantha has no choice but to be brought back into the present, because now it really is just her and Max. Max, also being an extension of Samantha, is obviously distraught over this, and he runs away. This is another part of the novel that reminds me of Frankenstein, the part where Elizabeth dies. Ava being Elizabeth, except Elizabeth is killed by the creature as a form of revenge against Victor. Ava is killed by the bunnies as a form of revenge against Samantha, but really Max, but really Samantha, because he's part of her. It's confusing. The creature in Frankenstein is more akin to the traits of bunny-like innocence. While the girl bunnies in the story perform innocence, but are actually the perpetrators of a lot of unjustified violence, neglect, and abuse of creation fueled by their unchecked privilege. So really, they're more like Victor cosplaying as the creation. Swans also have this sort of purity aspect that we often associate with bunnies, but they diverge in other aspects. Bunnies, for obvious reasons, represent fertility and creation, which is apt for their usage in this novel. Swans represent divine love and devotion, as many of them bond and mate for life. Samantha literally created her best friend, her other half, out of this bird that, for her personally, was related to times of darkness and solitude. She literally transmuted lonesomeness into community and connection without even realizing it. And that capability has always been within her. She's just been too busy avoiding these negative feelings to realize it. This is also about self-love and acceptance too. If she was able to care for Ava so deeply, and Ava is a part of her, then she should be able to care for herself too. She can, and she does. Her adoration of Ava is proof of that. And here I was for most of the novel thinking they were secret lesbians. And now here goes Max, this impassioned, rageful, almost feral side of Samantha that's planning to act on all of this emotion by taking an axe to the bunnies. And she has to figure out a way to tame him, a way to tame that part of herself. Only when Samantha admits out loud for the first time that she loves Ava, thus admitting that she loves herself, does Max stop and crumple to the ground. And then Samantha heads into the bunny's house to face them head on as herself. As she's having a conversation with them inside, they see Max out on the lawn and rush out to greet him. They literally start fighting over him, even though he just tried to ruin their lives like 3 chapters ago and lie to them all about his identity. The bunnies love Max so much. They are easily seduced by him because they fetishize Samantha's darkness, her grit, and her hardness, because those are all signs that she's actually lived a life that might be worth exploring and sharing in her writing. And that's why their hybrids always fail. They have nothing substantial to put into them. It's fun to indulge in that fantasy with Max, to roleplay it, but in their day-to-day lives, it's something that disgusts them and repels them, and they wouldn't actually want to experience it. And Samantha reclaims all of that for herself by killing Max right in front of them, and he turns into an antlered deer, and it doesn't die, it just runs off into the woods. So at last, Samantha is able to finish her thesis work and graduate alongside the bunnies. She leaves the after-ceremony celebrations early to go sit by the pond where Ava the swan came from. And guess who comes over to sit with her? Jonah. Now she gets to make a real friend right at the same place that she created Ava, and that is where the story ends. Overall, I enjoyed this book a lot. It was a quicker read for me than Wuthering Heights, but I think that's mostly because of the language being more modernized. I went into Bunny knowing really nothing about it, having no expectations, and it surprised me in the best of ways. I love how funny and grotesque it is. I love the nods to Frankenstein throughout, since Frankenstein is one of my my favorite books. I love how the bunnies are used symbolically in multiple different ways to add more depth and meaning to the main themes of the story. The writing style and Samantha's unreliability did take me a minute to get used to, I'm not gonna lie, but I do really think the story wouldn't hit the same without it making you feel as lost as Samantha was at times. If you're a fan of gothic fiction, satire, and you can handle the teeniest bit of blood and guts, I would recommend this book for you. It's really not that gory, I promise. It's tasteful, it's poignant. This was a lovely first read of the year, and if you read along with me, I hope you enjoyed it too. If this inspired you to read it, I hope you enjoy it. If you liked this video, you can go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have read this book. What are your thoughts about it? Or if you're interested in reading this book now, I'd love to hear that too. I will have another writing vlog probably coming out and another fan fiction sort of exploration video coming out as well before we get into our next novel. I promise the fanfiction video is a bit more lighthearted than the last one. I know I said that last time and things changed, but it's a fun one, but still with an important message. And I will tell you right now, it is about heated rivalry fanfiction. So if you're as into that show as I am, get excited over the coming weeks. The next book we're going to be reading is this, With the Fire on High. I actually got this as a gift from a friend a couple years ago, and I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but now I am, and I am like halfway through it at this moment, and it's really good. I really enjoy it so far. So I'm telling you about it now. So if you're seeing this video before that one comes up, you have a chance to start reading it a little bit if you want to be sort of in the know with me as I'm talking. This book is about a young Puerto Rican single mother, and it's about her navigating motherhood and her identity and her dream of becoming a chef one day, and how that fits into her now responsibility for her young daughter. I've been really enjoying it so far. I won't tell you much about it, of course. We gotta save that for the video, but it's been a really great read so far, and I think it's very fitting since this is the baking book club, and this is a book about food and cooking, someone who wants to cook. And there are recipes included in this book, so maybe for that video I will try to make them, or I might look up some other Puerto Rican desserts to try and make for this video as well, in honor of the book. So that's what we're doing next. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next week.